everyone, how are you doing? I hope you're okay. I'm back today with a couple of things. I want to show you my new kit that's just gone into the Etsy shop, and also I'm going to show you how I made these little envelope folios, a couple of journal cards, flicky out writing spots, tied with some twine here, and a little bit of journaling space there as well. So there's that one, there's this one, which is my favourite one. Bit of decoration, some journaling cards, journal spots, there's a little flip out journaling spot. And then I did a larger one as well when I was trying to put all this together and kind of come up with a prototype. Again, some journaling cards, flippy out journaling spots, and we've got like the booklet there. So I'm going to show you those in a second. The first thing I'm going to do is just quickly go through my new kit. This is in my Etsy shop and it's also in my Ko-fi shop, so I'll just quickly show you the pages. It's called Garden Grunge, and what I've done, what I wanted to try and achieve, is combine the brightness of the garden and flowers and summertime and springtime with the browns and the texture of like a grungy feel. So this is one page. There's 6 patterned pages, so that's number 1. And there's this one. Then there's this one. And then there's this one. This one. This one. So those are the 6 patterned pages. Then there's 4 background pages. So we've got number 1. Number 2, number 3, and number 4. So that's the paper kit. Now separately is a separate ephemera kit. In previous kits I've put them together, but I just thought for this I would split them up because it just gives people more options. You know, that you might not want everything, you might not want, you might want to make your own bits and bobs. So I've got them in 2 separate kits this time. So we've got some journaling cards, which could also be used as a booklet cover. We have some journal toppers. I made these and then photographed them. So this is from my original artwork. We also have some smaller journaling cards and some vertical cards which you could use as pockets or tucks, anything like that. Some tags, some blank journaling cards which you could use as a base for clusters, and some more pockets. And we also have a page of fussy cuts. As well, there is a freebie to go with this kit. These are, I don't really know how to describe them. In my head I was imagining the base of clusters, and you can kind of put something behind, another layer on top of it, put some of the fussy cuts on it. Those are a freebie, they're on my Ko-fi page. Just so you know, just for the reference, I have printed everything out on normal copy paper, apart from these pockets, which I just printed on card. It doesn't bother me printing on copy paper because I would prefer to have the option to, if I was going to use it as a pocket just to back it on some recycled material, just to strengthen it or something like that. I just prefer the look of the copy paper. I feel like it prints out brighter, but again, that's up to, you know, it's up to individuals, isn't it? And your preferences. So that's the kit. Now, I absolutely love this kit, I've got to say. And I used it to make these grungy, I suppose you would call them mini folios perhaps, and I made them from an envelope. So from the kit I have used some of the papers just cut up and used as a kind of decoration. We've got some of the one of the tags here, one of the fussy cuts. Inside here I have used some of the journal cards, and I've used one of the longer pockets or tags, whatever you want to use it for, on here. So that's that one. Oh, plus some texture paste, and so I've grunged the envelope up quite a bit, which I will show you how I did in a second. So that's that one. Then we have this one. I did them in exactly the same way, just using different colours, different elements from the kit. Inside we have the larger cards, and we also have on this side some texture paste and some splashes in our writing area. That's the background paper. And then I also used a larger brown envelope as well. I prefer this one because I like the neatness of the smaller size, and I also like the fact that the A4 paper fits nicely, is the tag here. But however, this, you know, still works really, really well. I decorated it exactly the same. Some bits of the collage paper, some tags on the inside, some journaling space here, and a booklet here, where I've just taken some of the paper as well, because you only get these two in the kit. So I've just done exactly the same thing, but just used the paper. Now this one, I actually made the envelope myself from recycled packing paper, which I've got to say I prefer, because I like my things slightly floppy. I just like that look. But what I did do is strengthen it here with some, it's the Tim Holtz fabric tape. So I did strengthen it there. And that's fine. By the time everything's stuck on, you know, that's strengthened up quite a bit. I've used some of the Tim Holtz tape there to strengthen it up as well, and also on the inside. So this one is my absolute favourite out of the three. I think I'm going to keep this one as my own personal one. I love it. A little bit of stitching there as well. If I was going to sell these or make them for somebody else or make them in a journal, I probably would go with the brown envelope option, just because it gives you that little bit of extra strength. And obviously, you know, if someone's spending money on something you've made, you want it to last and not break. So that's what I would do in that instance. So to make one of these, they're really simple and pretty addictive, actually. I could have sat doing those for hours. Well, I did sit doing them for hours. So all you will need is a brown envelope. Now this envelope is 6 by 4 inches, and the closest equivalent I could find to that is the A6, which is 4 1/8 by 5 7/8 of an inch, or C6, which is 4.5 inches by 6.4 inches. So depending on what you kind of work from, those are the closest equivalents that I could find. But to be honest, it doesn't matter, you know, make it whatever size suits you, whatever envelopes you've already got. it won't make a difference to the final outcome. So to make the actual grunginess of the envelope, I'm just trying to grab one here. I'll get the bigger one because you'll be able to see it better. To actually make the grunginess of the envelope, I've just used lots of texture, splatters, paints, stencils, and different kind of methods of putting that on. I have used, and if you want to do something similar, you might want to grab some paint. This is just, I think it's just acrylic paint. It's by Dilutions and it's called Balmy Night, and it's a lovely inky blue. It's one of my favourite colours. You will also need some white gesso, some ink, either the ink or the Distress Oxide. The Distress Oxide, though, just one thing to remember, when you activate it with water, you can get different colour changes, so just be aware of that. And your plastic, what do they call these? You know, the thing you put your stamp on. That, some black acrylic paint. You might want some Distress Stain or something similar to that. A roller, a brayer, and then I have a paintbrush and a pencil, because I hit the paintbrush with the pencil like that to get my splatters. Now, the first thing I did was I added paint to this envelope. This is the colour here, the bluey one. I added the paint first, and the way I added the paint was by using my brayer, just so I could get a really quick, fast, easy coverage. So I'm going to do that first. I will put you on time lapse so you don't have to sit through all of it, but you can still see what I'm doing. So I'll do that first. Okay, that's done. Now the next thing, as you can see, I've done the front, the back, and the inside. You didn't think about it too much. Probably a little bit too much paint there, but not to worry because we can cover that. So the next thing I did was I grabbed my ink and my I still can't think of the word. I still can't think what they're called. My clear Stampin' Block, and I applied, this is walnut stain by the way, I applied some of this ink to the envelope. Now I know people have various ways of doing this. The way I like to do it is by putting some ink on there, giving it a good spritz of water. Now instead of bringing the envelope to the block, I tend to do this because I like the pattern you get when you splodge it out. So I do that, and then I just use my block to spread the ink out like that. Again, I know it's brown on brown, but it's just adding that extra texture and dimension, and obviously now you can see the different shades of brown that we're starting to get on the envelope. So I'm just having a look. I could probably do with a little bit more there in the middle, so I'll just give that another spritz, and I'll just let that fall, and then I'll just splodge. So this is great if you feel like making a mess. It's one of those projects where you can just sit for ages in your own little world and just get on with it. So I'm going to do that on the back and on the inside, and I'll see you shortly. Okay, so that's done. I've done the front and the back. Just make sure your envelope hasn't stuck together on the inside when it's got wet. Right, so the next thing I'm going to do, and I'm sorry I forgot to mention this at the beginning, is I'm going to put some texture paste on the envelope just to give it that little bit of extra dimension, and it's just something that I like to do. So I use just one of these plastic spatulas, pop that out of the way, and a cheap stencil. I can't think where I got this from. I think it was AliExpress or eBay or something like that. So now, just a word of advice. Obviously, your envelope has crinkled quite a bit by this point. I have made sure it's really thoroughly dried as well. I use my heat tool just to make this step a little bit more successful. Yeah, so your envelope, it'll be crinkled. And what I found is when I've tried to use the texture paste over where it's crinkled, can you see? It's not blurry. It kind of leaked where there wasn't a strong contact between the stencil and the envelope, where there was a wrinkle. I've just kind of got this leaking around the outside. It doesn't make a massive difference, I don't think, because it's grungy anyway, but it's just something I thought I would mention, and it's something that I'm going to try and think about as I'm doing the stenciling on this one. Another thing I want to have a think about is that I want my stencil, I want my pocket on this side. Not my pocket, I want my writing flip on this side. So I'm going to make sure that I do my stenciling over here, so that when I've put my flippy out wallet on here, I can still see some of that texture. This one, I did it wrong. I put the envelope upside down. So it didn't matter, I just turned it around and had the pocket on this side instead. But for this, I want my flippy out to be here on this side. I'm going to stencil on this side. So I'm going to put it like that. And what I'm going to make sure I do is try and keep a firm pressure on the stencil, and perhaps use a little bit less of the paste so that I can really press down on this stencil. So fingers crossed I'll have a little bit more success. So let's just see what that looks like. I'm not overly perfect when I'm doing this. It's just, as long as I get a good coverage over the bit that I want, I'm not too pedantic about it. Right, so let's lift this off. Yeah, not bad. Again, a little bit of leaking underneath, but actually not too bad, and definitely not as bad as I've done in the future, in the past I should say. Okay, so obviously the next step now is to let that dry fully before adding anything on to it. I might speed the process up a little bit with my heat gun. However, when I do that, I'm going to have it on a low heat, and I'm going to make sure that I move my heat gun so that I'm not focusing the heat all in one place, because it can cause the texture paste to kind of lift and then almost bubble, which I actually don't mind that effect, but for this I don't really want that going on. I just want, you know, the kind of smooth texture of it. So I'm going to leave that, maybe get a cup of tea, get a drink, whatever. I'll turn you off and then I'll come back once we're all dry here. See you in a bit. Okay, I'm back. That's all lovely and dry, almost dry anyway. You can see where I've used my heat gun, just a little bit of these little tiny bubbles coming up. As I say, I quite like that. I just think it adds to the texture a little bit. But if you don't want anything like that, my advice would be to just, if you can, leave it for a good couple of hours, if not overnight, just to make sure that's nice and dry. I really like this little effect as well that just happened, where the texture paste has kind of soaked up some of the brown from the ink. I think that looks pretty cool. So I'm liking that. Okay. The next 3 steps are pretty easy, self-explanatory. I'm going to put some of this spray on. Now, I find the best way to do this is to actually just flick it, because I don't know why, and I don't know if it's just me, something that I do, whether I'm too heavy-handed, I'm not sure, but when I spritz it, so much comes out, and I just don't feel like it kind of looks very effective. However, I'm not overly keen on just having, I don't really want the splatters, if you know what I mean, because I'm going to be splatting with the green and with the black and the white. So I'm just going to try a very light, well, that's not too bad actually. A very light, that's a bit better. Yeah, that's not too bad. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to let this dry. I'm going to use my heat tool. I'm going to flip it over, do exactly the same thing on the other side. Then I'm going to use some white gesso that I'm going to water down, make it easy to flick. The reason I like to use gesso is because it's water based, and again it will soak up some of the brown of the ink. And it just stops it from being like that stark white colour. You could also use white acrylic paint for that. And I'm going to water down some black acrylic paint, and I'm going to splat that on there as well. So I think what I'll do is put you on time lapse so you don't have to watch me do all that. And then I will be back at the end. See you soon. Hey, I'm back. So there we have it. We have the base of our little folio, our grungy, splattered, textured envelope. I think I'm going to leave it there for today, because the next step, you know, the kind of the making bits and the booklets and things like that, I think we'd probably, if we did it all in one go, would make the video far too long. So I think I'm going to leave that there and do those bits in a second video. Please subscribe if you would like to. Make sure to like if you would like to. I will put a link to all of my socials and a link to the Garden Grunge kit in the description. And that's it. I will see you next time. Bye bye.